So Blake Lively files to dismiss $400 million lawsuit, calling it an abuse of the legal system.
These cars are moving. Ready?
During a high-profile court case, Blake Lively was visibly upset after a sharp comment from a seasoned lawyer. Witnesses said this moment stood out because it was so different from her usual calm and composed behavior. The tension in the courtroom grew when the lawyer's remarks not only questioned her credibility but seemed to strike a personal chord. People noticed that Lively, who was known for staying composed in public, couldn't hide her frustration as the back and forth intensified.
Just this week, Ryan Reynolds also filed to dismiss the lawsuit, but what does it mean? So this is specifically referring to Justin Baldoni's lawsuit against them. They want the judge to dismiss Baldoni's lawsuit against them, like saying, hey judge, we don't deserve to be sued. Can you please just get him away from us? Her publicist Leslie Sloan and the New York Times have also filed motions to dismiss, but why is this so important right now? Because the judge just settled the protective order dispute, which means the next phase is to move into discovery, which means digging up the text messages, digging up the emails, deposing people, Taylor Swift. And along with a motion to dismiss, we have Leslie Sloan and the New York Times, and presumably next will be Blake and Ryan, are filing a motion to stay discovery, meaning they don't want to move into discovery just yet until the judge decides on all of their motions to.
Before the session, there had been rumors about tensions behind the scenes, but no one expected such an open display. The incident has sparked a lot of debate among legal experts and fans, with people questioning whether Lively's outburst was a planned response or a real loss of control. As every detail is carefully examined, the event has become a key topic in conversations about the challenges celebrities face in the courtroom and how they balance their public image with legal proceedings.
Ryan Reynolds doesn't think it's fun anymore and he wants out. Hi, my name is Nigel Burns. I'm a trial lawyer in Southern California. That's right. Ryan Reynolds has asked a judge to dismiss him from the Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively lawsuit, saying that there are no legal grounds for any claim against him, and basically the claim against him by Baldoni amounts to hurt feelings. Now, many people would say all of this lawsuit or lawsuits is about hurt feelings and not much more, but that's why Ryan is wanting to get out of the party now and saying no more fun and games for him with this.
The proceedings started like any typical case, with both sides carefully presenting their arguments. Blake Lively, involved in a matter that had attracted significant public attention, initially appeared focused and calm. However, as the session progressed, the opposing lawyer shifted his approach. His opening statements were calm, but his tone carried subtle criticisms that seemed to stir the already tense atmosphere in the courtroom.
It does raise in my mind the question of, would that be enough to overcome the fair reporting privilege? It might be.
Yeah, and I think when we had talked with Zach Peter several weeks back, the question had come up, and I think Zach was, in tune to this. He says, why was the CRD complaint even filed? And then they go to New York, the Southern District of New York, and file a lawsuit up there. Your comment at the time was what?
It seems like they filed in California because we have a very liberal statute that gives you the litigation privilege. So now Lively's covered under the litigation privilege. And then you go to New York because you can report it under the fair.
Multiple reports indicate that the lawyer's questioning was direct and relentless, highlighting inconsistencies in Blake Lively's testimony and challenging the truthfulness of her statements. As he continued, his remarks became sharper, not just pointing to professional mistakes, but also hinting at personal issues that had no relevance to the case.
Their egos are too big.
They're not smart to. If they were smart, they would have settled. They're not smart.
Yes. And it's $400 million. And Ryan Reynolds has that money from the sale of
Midmo. It's funny because Justin Baldoni sued him for just over what they're worth.
Really? Oh, but that attorney scares the shit out of me, Brian.
Yeah.
For me, oh my God.
And they're usually a judge, especially, and attorneys would be like, do not play this out in the press. And Baldoni's attorney is like, we're playing this out in the press. You're going to insinuate about it? We're just going to show the text.
Yeah. No, he's dead right, because you know what? The court of public opinion is really what matters in Hollywood. It just does. Totally. It doesn't matter about money, like giving them 50 million, 60 million. It's just reputation. And he was so smart in doing that website, showing all the text. And I'm sorry, when people say you've done something wrong or whatever, I've been there. It's like, great, show me the text.
Yeah.
Show me what I did. Show me the screenshots. There's none because it never happened. Exactly. She can't show
At first, Blake Lively's reactions were subtle. a slight clench of her jaw and a brief pause before responding. But these small signs of frustration quickly grew stronger. Her hands, usually still on the table, began to move more dramatically, emphasizing her rebuttals. It was then that the lawyer, seemingly aware of every detail, made a particularly harsh comment. This not only criticized her legal strategy but also referenced past controversies. Eyewitnesses described this moment as a turning point, where the pressure from the lawyer's words finally seemed to unsettle her.
Maya Schachter. She is a very experienced intimacy coordinator who did not work on It Ends With Us, but she brings a lot of first-hand knowledge and wisdom. And she said something that really got me thinking and resonated. After reading text messages between them that they each included in their respective lawsuits, this intimacy coordinator says, quote, "From reading their text messages, I do sense that at one point there was genuine affection between them and what felt like a friendship. In my experience, when an actor says, I don't need to meet the intimacy coordinator until we're shooting, as much as it hinders my process, it does typically indicate that they trust their scene partner. And those texts made me think that at one point, she did feel a lot of trust with him. And you know what? I actually agree with her."
As the minutes passed, the courtroom became charged with emotion and legal back and forth. While the lawyer remained calm and detached, his words had a powerful impact on everyone in the room. Lively's defense, well prepared and backed by solid evidence, began to falter under the relentless personal attacks. Court reporters pointed out that the lawyer wasn't just trying to win the case, he was working to completely undermine the celebrity's story. As the exchange heated up, Lively's usual calm began to slip. Her responses, once precise and composed, became fiery retorts that filled the silent room.
A delay tactic. It seems like they don't want to move into discovery, probably because discovery is going to get very messy. Again, the text messages, the emails, we're going to get into all the records, we're going to get into the depositions. Taylor Swift, Hugh Jackman, Bradley Cooper. You know for a fact, Brian Friedman is coming for all of them in the depositions. Now, why might Khaleesi and her dragons want to delay the discovery process? One theory is that we have another simple favor. The official premiere is coming out soon, so we may not want to taint that any further, right? Oh, but there's a bigger reason we may want to delay this process. This very, very messy process. Bigger than another simple favor, Ryan Reynolds' company is about to go public. Sounds like a very lucrative deal. Now, we wouldn't want to hurt any chances of a really big sale by having messy details about this messy lawsuit come out.
Those who know Blake Lively's public persona noted that this was a stark contrast to her usual polished responses during media appearances and interviews. Instead of the calm, rehearsed answers she's known for, she seemed raw and unguarded, letting her frustration show. Some legal analysts suggested that the lawyer's tactic might have been to provoke an emotional response that could be used to question her stability and weaken her case. At the same time, people watching the incident unfold through various media outlets quickly took to social media to share their own views, blending legal opinions with suggestions of a personal vendetta.
For Blake Lively to drop this freaking amendment, okay? Am I the only person with their hands raised? Are you guys just here to plagiarize because you know I went through every line like a complete psycho? That's perfectly fine. I just want you guys to know rather. But if you're here because you think there's some bombshell in here, as her lawyers were alluding to, oh, wait until everybody sees everything, you're going to be sorely disappointed, because if clickbait was an amendment, this is it. Okay, I cannot believe it. And there's so much more going on here. Now we really see the target of everything, I think. Really the linchpin for her lawsuit, the person that she went after. We have to discuss Isabella Ferrer. All that coming up.
As the session went on, the tension continued to build. The lawyer's questioning shifted more toward Lively's career choices and public statements, topics that were typically off-limits in a courtroom. His comments suggested that her celebrity status might have clouded her judgment, a claim that clearly upset both her legal team and her supporters. At one point, the discussion drifted into areas many felt were unrelated to the case. The lawyer's relentless focus on every possible inconsistency seemed less like standard legal strategy and more like a targeted effort to discredit her credibility.
It was Ryan who had called this shot, that it was very obvious now that we know his brand of narcissism. I feel like we all deserve like PhDs in psychology by the end of this. And since we were able to connect the way his teacher said that he believes he can act his way out of anything and make people fall in love with him, I said yesterday on the show, 100% Ryan was the one who put this line in here. Not SNL, not Tina Fey, not Blake Lively, but Ryan. And sure enough, some amazing mommy sleuth sends me a link yesterday, which you guys don't forget. She says, check out this broadcast on an Australian radio show called Fifi, Fev, and Nick for Breakfast, literally a Melbourne, Australia station, where they had a guy who's been with SNL for like 25 years. His name is Cue Card Wally. He literally holds the cue cards for SNL. And he was just opening up with them in a friendly conversation about how exciting hosting that 50th anniversary was. And at the very end of the conversation, Cue Card Wally gets asked about that line. Ryan Reynolds jumping up and making a joke about the Justin Baldoni situation, and take a listen to what Cue Card Wally had to say.
Now, Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively have been in the news a lot, and Ryan Reynolds, we want to know, was that an improv or was it scripted, his little piece he did?
That was actually, he had a different line in rehearsal, and he pitched that to replace it. So that was his idea to do it.
It was Ryan's.
In response, Lively's replies became sharper. She argued that the lawyer's questions weren't just irrelevant but also an attack on her character, shifting focus away from the real legal issues. Her responses, filled with legal references and evidence, were an attempt to regain control of the narrative. However, as time passed, her tone began to show more irritation, a sharp contrast to her usual calm and composed manner. Her body language, once steady, started to show the strain of the moment. Eyewitnesses noted that her eyes grew intense, and her gestures became more forceful, reflecting the emotional toll of the relentless questioning.
So now we have these insanely wealthy humans that are just having a pillow fight, and we already have a backlog in the court system. And now they have clogged up 3 different areas of law and people that actually have to go to work for a living, and there's other cases that are behind them that are legitimate, and this is just silliness. This is high-powered, high-priced lawyer doing legal gymnastics. At the end of it, there's going to be nothing. Nothing's going to happen. There's not even. It's going to be dismissed everywhere. And that's it. And I enjoy talking about it because I like the legal gymnastics that the lawyers have done. But it's all nonsense. All of it. And you can get mad at me for saying that because this guy said this or this girl said this. When it all comes to a head at the end, everybody knew what they were doing, and everybody is trying to make themselves look good, and they want to make more money because they're entitled Hollywood people. That's
Courtroom aides later described the episode as unusual for Blake Lively, whose public appearances are typically marked by grace under pressure. It was clear that the lawyer's strategy had worked, provoking a response that many saw as a notable break from the usual calm expected in court. Legal experts who discussed the incident afterward pointed out that such moments, though rare, can have significant consequences in high-stakes cases involving public figures. They highlighted how celebrity trials often involve a delicate balance between public perception and legal tactics, with every word and gesture carefully scrutinized.
Joe Rogan is blasting Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, and I just kind of found this to be quite funny. I found it funny. He said that they effed up when he was on his podcast because it came up about the whole It Ends With Us drama and the legal saga. And I feel like more and more people are starting to come to the point where they're realizing like Blake Lively very clearly is not telling the truth. I think when I was talking it through yesterday with Daniel Feruzin, it kind of became abundantly clear because I was like, what smoking gun could she possibly have? She's trying to argue 47.1, and sure, that's a strong argument, but again, it goes down to, a matter of fact that will have to be determined by the jury, not a judge. The very same sentiment that was echoed by Harvey Levin when he was on TMZ, and he's like, these are matters of, these are questions of fact, and questions of fact are for the jury, not for the coconut tree. Now,
As the session drew to a close, the lawyer made one final cutting remark that seemed to define the narrative for the day. In his closing statement, he summarized the points that had unsettled Blake Lively, portraying her outburst as a sign of deeper issues. His words carried a sense of finality, leaving no doubt that he intended to present her not just as a celebrity defendant, but as someone whose personal and professional life was riddled with inconsistencies. The judge, maintaining order, reminded everyone to focus on the legal aspects of the case rather than personal emotions. However, the damage had already been done. The incident was recorded, analyzed, and quickly shared among legal professionals and the public. In the aftermath, media analysts and legal commentators have been busy unpacking the event. While they acknowledge that the lawyer's remarks fell within the limits of legal strategy, they point out that Lively's reaction highlighted the unique challenges celebrities face when their private lives intersect with the legal process. The incident has sparked discussions on the limits of courtroom questioning techniques and the potential impact of personal attacks on witnesses. Some argue that while these tactics may be legally acceptable, they can ultimately harm the integrity of the judicial process by shifting attention away from the facts and towards emotional responses.
Reynolds at a Marvel panel, I guess he mentioned something about, because, you know, there's all the drama about they had their daughter Inez, who was 7 years old, and they had her say this line in the Deadpool skit where they had Nice Pull when Deadpool was like in that alternate universe or whatever. A resurfaced interview with Ryan Reynolds that little girl was Ryan and Blake's daughter Inez, who was 7 at the time, and she references Wolverine's eggplant in Deadpool's mouth. So, and she literally says that when you get Wolverine's eggplant out, she doesn't say eggplant, she uses the real word. And she says that, and they joke about how they had to retake that line over and over and over, and how they had to, you know, repeatedly take many cuts. And Inez at first was uncomfortable and didn't want to say it. And then Ryan Reynolds was like, well, if you don't say it, then I'll have to give the part to somebody else. And then she was like, no, I'll do it. So there you go. It's just hilarious to make your daughter repeat a fellatio joke time and time.
Behind the scenes, members of Blake Lively's legal team are carefully reviewing the incident and are planning to address any potential biases or tactics that may have influenced the proceedings. They maintain that her outburst was a one-time reaction to an aggressive line of questioning and does not reflect her usual behavior. On the other hand, the lawyer's team defends the approach as a necessary and effective way to expose weaknesses in the opposing testimony. This difference in viewpoints highlights a larger debate about the role of personality in legal disputes, especially when high-profile individuals are involved. Throughout the day, social media was filled with opinions and debates. Fans had mixed reactions. Some sympathized with Lively, feeling she had been pushed too far, while others saw her response as a moment of vulnerability that could be used against her. Legal forums also buzzed with analysis of the lawyer's tactics, with experienced attorneys discussing the ethical limits of courtroom conduct. The incident has since become a key case study in legal circles, illustrating the fine line between effective cross-examination and personal attacks. In many ways, this episode will likely serve as a reference for future celebrity trials, where every word and gesture is magnified under the public scrutiny.
Talking about the boob cake and all these things, like all the things that we've seen resurface in their interviews, are ridiculous when you put them in the context of what they're trying to accuse Justin Baldoni of doing, especially now knowing that they've taken the things that they've accused him of doing and they've manipulated the context. Remember, again, the text message, the cherry-picked text messages, the removing of the emoji.
As the court session concluded, the tension in the room was undeniable. The judge's final remarks emphasized the importance of respecting the legal process and urged everyone to move forward with that in mind. However, for many, the real story of the day wasn't the verdict or the legal arguments, but the unexpected display of raw emotion from one of Hollywood's most beloved stars. This incident has sparked wider conversations about the pressures of public life and the high stakes involved when personal lives collide with legal battles. In the days ahead, as the media continues to scrutinize every detail, the lasting impact of this courtroom drama on both legal practices and celebrity culture is yet to be fully understood.